Pharaoh's dream. Pharaoh had a dream of 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows, and the skinny cows ate the fat cows, and Joseph said, that's because we're going to have famine. This might be in our world now. We're going to have famine for 7 years, and then there'll be plenty. So Joseph was made the chief financial officer in Egypt, and his family came and they lived there, and eventually it says Pharaoh forgot Joseph many generations later, and the Hebrews were enslaved. And it said for 400 years we were enslaved. How would that feel? You think life is hard now? Well, they were enslaved for 400 years, and this is the beginning of freedom from slavery. Any slavery that we're in, any addiction we're in, any bad patterns that we're in, this is the story. The slaves were getting so numerous, they were reproducing, and Pharaoh said to the midwives, kill all the boys as soon as they're born. So if you think your life is hard, and boys were killed, Moses' parents took Moses as a baby. How would you feel like if you were Moses? And put him in a basket and floated the basket down the Nile. And the Egyptian princess. So if you think life is hard, you're threatened with death when you begin, your family puts you in a basket and lets you float down the Nile, and aha! Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses. Oh, a baby. For me, she must have known it was a Hebrew child, but she brought it up, and from being almost killed at birth, Moses became a prince in Pharaoh's household. He comes across an Egyptian slave master beating a Hebrew slave to death. And he was aware of his Hebrew origin. He was brought up in the palace by his family. They said, if you need any help with the baby child, we'll be happy to help. And certainly Pharaoh's daughter knew this. But just feel what it's like. You're grown up and you feel wealthy. And yet inside you also know you're someone else. You grow up and you think you're a prince, and inside we can feel we're someone else. We're part of a people who's enslaved. could be in America too, or women, disabled, any oppressed people. Jews. So what do you do if you're growing up and you feel you're also part of a group that's enslaved, or you feel the enslaved part in you? Well, when he saw the Egyptian slave master beating a Hebrew slave for not doing all the work that needed to be done, Moses, in rage, killed the Egyptian slave master. Wow. So imagine you're in anger getting the better of you, and you kill the slave master. The next day, two slaves were fighting, and Moses tried to stop them from fighting. You want to make peace in the world. And they said, "You're the man who killed the Egyptian slave master. Well, who are you to tell us that we can't fight?" And so Moses knew it was time to leave. And what would that feel like? You're leaving your wealthy home, your prestigious position, because you were fighting for justice and peace. It's an old mantra, no good deed goes unpunished. And so Moses flees into the desert, and he comes to the Match.com place, the dating app place. In earlier times was a well. Comes to the well, meets a woman, marries her. He's a fugitive from law. She's a Midianite, offspring of Abraham, and his last wife, Keturah, who we lived very happily with and had 6 children, one Midianite. So she and her family, her father Jethro, might have known about the Hebrew traditions. Moses was born a Hebrew, and maybe his sister and mother who helped bring him up, but now he was living comfortably, married as a shepherd. What a new life. He might have loved it way, way more than his life in Pharaoh's palace. And he lived there for many years. Maybe 20 if I remember. And then he's tending his sheep, and he sees a bush. In Hebrew, the word is sneh. It's just a little bush. And this burning bush he seems to hear. Have you heard trees or nature communicate to you in some ways? Moses could hear, take off your shoes, the place you're standing on is holy. And in this beautiful spring, we could feel the light. I felt it walking around Fresh Pond, that every step just was another step into the beauty of the light falling on the leaves. There's an old mantra, through the cracks the light comes through, and Moses had many cracks in his life. So he experiences, and hears these words, to go and free his people. He's always had two parts of him. He was the Hebrew who was almost killed, and then the prince, who was also a Hebrew slave, and now he was a shepherd, but also a prince. When he takes off his shoes, he wonders, who is talking to me? And he hears these very interesting words. My name is Yahweh. And Yahweh in Hebrew means Hayah, I was, Hoveh, I am, and Ehyeh, I will be. Or it could be, I am growing. I was, am. If we're very present, we can be present to the past and grow into the future. Moses hears this, and then these strange words he hears. I used to be called El Shaddai. Your ancient fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, only knew me by the name El Shaddai, which means the power of a female breast. Like a mountain could be a breast of the earth. That the ancestors of Moses, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abraham had trouble having a child. No wonder he would need to feel divinity in a female's breast. You can feel the life coming through, the hope of children, of nourishment, of pleasure. And divinity, Yahweh, new name for what's divine. We'll see this is going to happen again and again, that Jesus is going to take the Passover story and make it have a